Good morning. I'm Dave Crouch, and this is the Public Affairs Roundtable brought to you each month by the Williamson, Inc., the Williamson County Chamber of Commerce. And our guests this morning are with us Mayor Ken Moore from the City of Franklin, Dr. Ken Moore, and Eric Stuckey, our City Administrator.
Good morning.
I also have with us this morning Matt Largent, who is the President of Williamson, Inc., our chamber. And glad to have you gentlemen with us this morning, and looking forward to our program all about the focus on Franklin. Mayor, you have been now mayor for how long for the city of Franklin?
Since January 2011. I took over for Commissioner Schroer when he resigned, and then I was elected in October of 11.
So when are you up for re-election, and do you plan to run again?
Well, I don't know if this is the appropriate spot to make an announcement, but now that you mentioned it, I do plan on running again next year. I look forward to the opportunity to have another term as mayor. Having a great time, and I think that we've got a very effective board and a very effective city organization. Things are running smooth. I would like to recognize that we have Vice Mayor Peterson here today, and he does a great job as the vice mayor and filling in when I'm not available, and so
that's great.
Thank you.
Good to have you. Now, you're married, got kids, grandkids. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Yes, all of those. I'm married to a Franklin native.
One of the Crowell clan, I believe.
One of the Crowells. Linda and I will be married 30 years this coming January. We have 5 children between us. We have 6 grandchildren. So we kind of have 2 batches of grandchildren. One group that's kind of grown, and they're actually out in the workforce, and we've got one group that's 2, 7, and 9.
Wow.
So and pretty much everybody is close in the region except for my daughter, who lives in Pinehurst, North Carolina, and that's a little further away, but a good golf destination.
And you could still find time to be mayor, but.
I'm very blessed. I've always, when I was working, I had a lot of capacity to work, I thought, and I embrace this job wholeheartedly and try to dedicate whatever time that's necessary.
Well, you certainly are everywhere I show up for anything that's related to the city of Franklin, and we applaud you for your energy and your efforts, doing a great job. Eric, now you've been city administrator for how long now?
Well, coming up on 6 years at the end of this year.
Okay, so this time last year you had just gotten back from a trip to, do you call it climb Mount Kilimanjaro or hike up Mount Kilimanjaro?
A year ago, the end of this week, we left on our trip. So yeah, my brothers and I summited Kilimanjaro on September 8th of 13, so great experience.
Now, have you been to Everest since then, or is that the next?
I have not fit that in my schedule yet. No, not yet.
So no major accomplishments along that line since then?
Not yet, no. We're thinking about what's next. Haven't come up with that plan quite yet.
Okay, and you're married with children?
I'm married to my wife, Lisa, and we celebrated our 25th anniversary just a little earlier this summer, so that was a big milestone. And we have 2 children. My daughter Beth, who is a sophomore at Ohio State. We just got her up to Columbus a week or so ago. Okay. And my son Scott, who is a senior at Franklin High School.
Okay, great. And he is thinking he might want to do what in his...
He's talked about... surprisingly not city management, which really hurts me. But biomedical engineering has caught his eye. He's a real good student. We'll see if that's what he stays with, but he's looking to explore that field, and we'll see. Excited to see what decisions he makes later this year as he heads into the college selection process.
And what does Lisa major in at Ohio State?
Well, my daughter Beth, actually.
Beth, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Beth is studying public health at Ohio State, and she's in the Health Scholars Program there. So she's really loving it. She's a true Buckeye.
Uh-oh.
You can't say true blue. You say true Buckeye.
I'm learning about true different things because of Charlie and his escapade down to Mississippi State here a couple of weeks ago.
A
So
bulldog now, huh?
yeah, we're learning all about bulldogs. So.
And cowbells.
And cowbells. And we've had a couple of cowbells show up at Centennial High events now. So I think we've got a lot of bulldogs that have come from Centennial. So we're, I think, using it up here some. Eric has prepared an outline that really covers almost all of what's going on in the city of Franklin. And Eric, I appreciate kind of putting this outline together. If you would, if you want to, or Mayor Moore, if you'd rather kind of introduce what's going on in economic development in the city of Franklin. And Matt, if you could help steer that
Sure.
discussion, please.
Sure.
You want me to take it, or you want to take it?
Go ahead and take it away. We got a
Sure.
first
Well,
overview kind of
I
item.
think that it's no mystery that we are very, very blessed in Williamson County and Franklin with a very vibrant economy. We survived the recession of 2008, and during that period of time, actually we were having job growth, which was certainly not the normal for the rest of the country. We recently were recognized as one of the fastest growing cities in America, over 50,000. In fact, I think we're 15th on that list. NerdWallet, which, you know, as Eric likes to say, we haven't found a top 10 list we don't like, but this is an organization that does do a lot of superlatives and rankings, and we were recognized as number 2 for up-and-coming city. And then probably the most, almost the most recent is Inc. 5000 listed the fastest growing companies in America, and of those 80 or so that are in Williamson County, we have, or rather of those in Tennessee, about a third of those are in Williamson County and Franklin. And then lastly, we see a lot of activity on the building side with a real uptick in building permits. We have 552 permits that have been issued already. That's $238 million, and that can be broken down into both residential and non-residential. And then finally, we just made another list, and Travel and Leisure Magazine recognized us as number 14 for a place to see fall colors. So things are on the move and looking good.
And let's start with that Inc. 5000 list, Mayor and Eric, and kind of go in that depth a little more. To me, it's amazing to think that Williamson County makes up only 3% of the population of Tennessee, but accounts for a third of those companies on that list. And actually, 20% of those are in Franklin. I mean, to me, that's extraordinary. So, Mayor, talk about some of the reasons why you think that is, especially in light of some of the existing industry visits that you and the staff from Williamson Inc. have made in the last couple of years.
Well, I think that thanks to our county and also our special school districts, we're blessed with some schools. So I think that's number one reason that, or in the top 3 or 4 reasons why companies choose to have their companies grow here and also to relocate their companies. We have a great quality of life here. We have a very educated workforce. 52% of our residents have a college degree. 70% have had some college. So we just heard about the governor's Tennessee Promise, which is something that we're excited about, but also his goal to have 55% of Tennesseans with a college degree.
Yep, good. And I guess, Eric, you touched...
I have one other thing
sure.
to say. And the other
Please.
thing is that I never really took into account was when these corporate relocation groups come and look, they want to know how people get along. And I'm proud to say that we have a great working relationship with our sister cities in Williamson County and a great relationship with the county. So that's important. Companies want stability, and this is long-term stability in our area.
I think you're exactly right about that, Mayor. One of the things that I hear a lot from site consultants is the term risk mitigation. And when they see how cities in the county can interact with the school districts and other entities, so well, and we're on the same page, and we're able to solve all the common problems, it really puts their mind at ease, and they understand this is something that's special and unique about this place that doesn't happen in a lot of places in America. And I think it's interesting to note, too, that we're one of 3 counties in Tennessee that technically didn't go through the last recession, which is also pretty impressive. So Eric, I'm going to go back to some of the things that you touched on in the slide about the building permit activity for 2014. Talk about some trends, and how does that compare to previous, and maybe even what are your expectations for the future in terms of building permits and residential and commercial?
Well, it's a strong sign, obviously. We've seen this in a number of different facets of what we do, and it's been a steady increase, and it's almost like something rolling downhill. It's picking up speed is what we see in terms of permit activity and development that enters the pipeline and continues through the pipeline. Nearly $250,000 investment in total in the permits in the first 6 months of the year is a strong indicator of that as well. And so we just see that pace continuing, and have worked hard to plan and prepare for that, and be ready to work with those opportunities when they come our way. One of the things I want to highlight that's on the end part of that slide, I think, and one of the things I've heard you say that I really am a firm believer in, is that our biggest enemy is complacency, where we think, well, we got it down, we're good. Well, you look at our development services and a couple things we're working on that I think are going to be strong improvements. We continue to push more and more services online, so that really the doors of City Hall can literally be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to submit a permit, submit plans. We schedule inspections next day in most cases. If you get to us by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we'll schedule an inspection for you the next day. So we're trying to be as responsive as we can and assisting folks. One of the things that's in our budget is a one-stop permitting center that we're going to configure in City Hall, so that folks can literally walk through and do certain permits just right there on the spot, and walk through and talk to a couple different areas of key expertise and get it done right there on site for simpler permits. We went to school on some things that Metro has done with one-stop permitting, so we've learned from that. And then finally, one of the things we're going to talk about Tuesday night with the board is a simplification of our residential permitting, detached single-family residential permitting process that will be revenue neutral to the city and cost neutral to the customer, but what we're getting 5 or 6 or 7 permits for, people will just get 1 based on the size of the home. So we think that's a real promising way to improve, be more efficient, actually keeps our permitting staff and inspection staff focused on their jobs. And so we think that's going to be a real improvement.
Now, what 7 steps are you rolling into one there?
Well, instead of, and this is for discussion on Tuesday night, but instead of getting a separate permit for a home for the electrical and the plumbing and all the different components, you would just get 1 residential permit based on the size of the home.
Okay.
And we've done a lot of analysis of what that is, what that looks like, and came up with a per square foot cost that gets us to essentially the same cost that people are paying today on that size home.
Gotcha.
So we think that'll be a much more efficient way for people to come in, pull their permit. They don't need to do a bunch of separate individual calculations on every permit. They can do it on one, and it gets
Right.
us all to the same place.
Saves time in with the staff too, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think those kind of things are great that encourage and invite development and investment. And you're right about complacency. We know that counties around Williamson County right now are in the middle of, or towards the end of, a white-collar attraction study, because everybody wants to have what Williamson County has. And so not only is it important to continue to keep the momentum, but also we know as the #1 county in basically everything in Tennessee, we've got a big target on our back. So it's great when you see municipal leaders really figuring out ways to take us to the next step and continue that momentum. I had the chance this last week to be in East Tennessee as one of my other jobs as chair of the Tennessee Economic Partnership, and we were touring it was downtown Kingsport, and we were touring the different industries there, and one of them was a paper mill and had a certain odor in the morning, and But the way it was explained by a good friend of mine who's an economic developer there, that's the smell of money and jobs. And he's right. I mean, that's exactly what it is. So when you think about traffic and congestion in Franklin, I always say it's a byproduct of our success, which is technically true, but it still can be a challenge. Talk about some of the ways that you all are working to help when it comes to transportation and congestion.
Well, first and foremost, one of the things this board has done since I've been on board with the city is really tried to focus on priority capital projects with a particular emphasis on especially roadway improvements. So we have been focused on what are the top priorities and what can we afford to do, and then deliver on those projects. So we've tried to do that. We know that was made for a disruptive summer this summer. But improvements that needed to happen in a project like Hillsborough Road, which has been literally talked about for 20 years, is now, that phase 1 is finished now, and we'll start phase 2 later this fall. So we're trying to chip away at those key projects, get those done, deliver on those, but we're also doing some more comprehensive transportation planning. As opposed to just doing a roadway plan for our major thoroughfare plan, we're doing a more comprehensive transportation plan that looks at roads, but also looks at other elements and how they interface, be they bike paths and multi-use paths, be they how transit can fit into what we do to lessen traffic impact in key areas. All those are things that are a broader look, and also trying to merge that with land use planning so that you look at what's coming in certain areas and then work to plan for all the other elements, including transportation around that, so that you're ahead of it as opposed to trying to catch up with it. And when you've had the dynamic growth the city like Franklin has had, those can be challenging elements, but we're really working to stay focused on the most important items, deliver on those on the project side, and then plan as comprehensively as we can.
Right. Anything you want to add there?
Well, I think I hope the citizens of Franklin see that one of our mantras that we operate under is long-term planning.
Right.
You know, every aspect of operations of the city, I think I can go back and look and see where we're having long-range plans that address those areas. And if we don't do those long-range plans, you know, that's when we get in trouble. We can't, I mean, our challenge is how do we keep moving people. That's the most prominent one right now. There are other things that we're planning for, though.
Okay. One last question, I'll turn it back over to Dave. And Eric, I'll go back to you. Again, spending time with site location consultants in different conferences this summer, two things really struck me. One, they talk about labor being more important than ever, talent being more important than ever. And also, and this is really interesting, when a company comes to town, they don't necessarily want to hear from me all the time because I'm paid to say great things about the area, just like you are.
Yeah.
They want to hear from existing companies that are here and interview their HR managers, talk about their experiences hiring in the area. And one consultant said, the way I know if a community has really got it together is if they can set those interviews up for me. A lot of communities aren't able to do that. Mm-hmm. So I'll go back to a question I asked Mayor Moore, because you've been on a lot of these existing industry visits. What are some things you're taking out of it from our existing employers, bearing in mind that 71% of the new jobs in, I guess, Franklin, the last 5 years have come from those existing companies?
Well, what we take away is they're very proud of being here. They do have a strong feeling about the community. Really, the couple things I take away is, first of all, I'm amazed at the reach of these companies. We go in and just what they are doing and where they're touching across not just the country but the world, and the leadership positions those companies are in is awesome, and it's great to see that. And the vast majority are in expansion mode. They aren't staying put. They are looking for those next chapters. They are investing. They are doing the same kind of planning we talked about trying to do on the city level. They're doing for their businesses to be successful and highly competitive. So it's really inspirational to see that. When you go talk to them, it kind of puts a little spring in your step to push things and do things better yourself as a city that's trying to be a home for these great companies. But you know, the importance of that partnership and plugging into the community and finding workforce that they can build on, but also that they feel good about bringing families to, that they recruit from outside of the area, or if they're relocating or expanding. that they really see it as a place that people want to be. And by and large, they feel that way. The quality of life, the quality schools that the mayor talked about, just a sense of a very family-friendly community as well. All that adds up very, very strongly in the positive column for us. We do hear about certain segments of jobs that are harder than others. IT always rises to that top of that list in most every visit. We do have a few say, yeah, we get the people we need, and they don't say anything else, but most say, yeah, that can be a struggle to get and then retain, because it is such a hot market. Somewhere around 1,000 vacancies today sitting in the region. So, the kind of creative problem solving that I know you're trying to do at Williamson Inc. and with many partners is really important in that way. So,
Thanks, Eric.
I just sitting here looking at the economic development team we have for Franklin with Matt, along with Mayor Moore and Eric. We've got one of the best in the country, obviously, because it's working, and just appreciate the way y'all all pull together and make that happen. Switching gears now a little bit more toward infrastructure and what's to come in that response. Obviously the big news over the past couple of weeks has been the disaster out at Paytonsville Road, and what's happening there and how we've responded to that. Mayor Moore, how did you find out about that accident, and what happened in the next few hours after that?
Sure, and certainly I want to start out by my comments that there was a death in this tragic accident, and we're very, very blessed that it didn't occur some other time of the day, because it could have been much worse. But the accident happened about 4 a.m. and Eric called me about 5 a.m. To inform me of what was happening, that a tanker truck had hit the bridge and exploded, and there was fire and damage and suspected damage, significant damage to both bridges. I think my comment would be that I am truly amazed by how there was such great coordination, not only between city departments that were involved, fire, police, the county response, the state response, the highway patrol response, the TDOT response. It's actually like everybody did their job. Nobody tried to do somebody else's job. I think the perfect coordination, and kind of to top it off, the next day we were in a conference call. In fact, Eric was running the conference call with all the agencies that were involved, and we thought we had plenty of room on the line. We had 48 people calling in from all over all the agencies of the state are involved. So kudos to our city organization and to Eric for how all of those departments coordinated their activities and made what could have been a even worse disaster into something that seemed to work out. And of course, kudos to TDOT, who I didn't know you could tear a bridge down as quickly as they did. And we're very, very blessed that the plan was to tear that bridge down eventually.
Right.
And they already had the steel fabricated, which gives us the opportunity to have that intersection open sooner rather than later. And so the last I heard was hopefully around Thanksgiving that overpass will be ready.
It's amazing.
And you see up there on the photos, the photo on the right, as you look at it, is actually from Thursday afternoon. Those are the bridge piers for that replacement bridge that are already up at Goose Creek, Paytonsville. So that activity is going full speed ahead. As the mayor said, TDOT announced over the weekend the timeline to demolish the newly built but damaged bridge. I think September 19th, that weekend, to do the demolition there, and then to have this the new bridge that is started construction now, have that open to the public by the end of November. So that has moved very quickly, and it was a remarkable response from a lot of folks, and it was a tragic accident. But our folks were ready to respond and did a good job, and that fire was under control in about 40 minutes from when they got on the scene, which, looking at how substantial that fire was, is incredible to me. But the fact that our folks were ready to go wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't luck.
Right.
It was preparation. And that's everybody working together.
Well, you could tell just from a pure amateur point of view that things were clicking and things were coming in place very quickly, and I was amazed at how quickly everything came together after the accident, and the plans came together and the detour signs went up, and obviously you all have got a team that knows how to respond to that sort of situation, as tragic as it was. Moving on to the capital projects that are underway and planned. Eric, you've highlighted the Hillsborough Phase 1. Now, I haven't been through there in the last week or two, so tell us where we are on Hillsborough Road, and is the paving down? I think
the paving's pretty much all complete. We're just doing punch list right now, so it's wide open, and so fully functioning, and 3rd Avenue North extension was opened a few weeks before that, so those two elements are now up and going full speed, and that should help traffic move much better in and around that area, and provide a much improved entryway into downtown from that area. So we're very glad to see that happen. But later this year we'll start Phase 2, so get ready to be disrupted again, but we got to get that moving, and that'll take us from just north of Wendy's there on Hillsborough up through the Mack Hatcher intersection.
Very good. And the 3rd Avenue, is that connected to the park, the Bicentennial Park? How does that all fit together? And I'm getting off the outline.
No, that's fine.
Bit,
and actually, here's a couple pictures that show 3rd Avenue North extension and then a bit of Bicentennial Park. It really does. It not only creates what is sort of a part of a little bit of a mini bypass of downtown traffic, is part of the traffic function of 3rd Avenue North extension, but it also really shapes Bicentennial Park for the first time, and really helps that take shape, and elements of that. The additional bike path and Point Park work will happen starting this fall, so you'll see a lot more come into shape in terms of Bicentennial Park. We have dollars in the budget set aside to help us make the pavilion, the old Georgia Boot Pavilion, functional in terms of being a place that you could do events and be sort of a mini festival area. So those elements are coming together, and that can really be a place that's activated and used by our community, which we're really excited to have that as a resource. So, and that also may help us with some downtown events, to be a place to go for certain downtown events. We get occasional complaints about closing streets downtown, and so having options, and it's a popular place to be, and that's always going to be the case, and we're proud of that. But we also want to have some other options for certain types of events that could maybe use the pavilion, use that area of Bicentennial Park. Long term, that's one of the things we're working towards.
Now, the carnival for the Main Street Festival, it's always kind of a hunt to find out where it's actually going to be each year. Do you think it might find a permanent home down there at Bicentennial Park, or is that the sort of thing that?
Yeah, that certainly could be a site for it, and we'll have to see how that goes with the event organizers, but that definitely is an option.
Okay, just curious as to how that would be used. Wilson Pike, McEwen, tell us what's going on out that way.
Well, that's largely complete now, and that was improvements in terms of turn lanes and updated signals in that area, and some widening and right around the intersection. We essentially have taken some elements of the 4th phase of McEwen and done them ahead of time to help some areas work out there. This was really triggered, these improvements were triggered with the opening of the Clovercroft Elementary School out in that area, and The schools made a contribution to some of these improvements, and the city did as well. And so we sort of worked together to maybe find options to do our best to handle some of the additional traffic that would be put in that area through the development of the school. So that is largely complete. It was a challenging project, and they had a lot of utilities to work with, including the railroad, and that always takes some extra time and patience and a few prayers to get that done in time, and that is got us up and going. So that should help some traffic flow in that area.
Great. Mayor Moore, I see in the paper this morning that the Ovation project, which is on McEwen there at the intersection of Carruthers, is on the agenda, I think, this week. Expecting maybe final approval for that project. That is a huge project.
Well, if you think $700 million is huge, yeah, that's huge, and it really is. And we're excited about that particular project. And we're talking about the southeast corner of Carruthers-McEwen intersection.
Okay.
The old, I've forgotten who owned the property now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard it in the audience.
Pickering.
Pickering
Thank
property,
you,
yeah.
Nancy.
Thank you. Yeah, we are not quite awake, but yeah, we're very excited about that. They had to have some modifications of their plan as far as some of the property boundaries where they interact with the high woods, and so that's the reason it's slowed down. But I think they're eager to go ahead and get this project started, and we're excited for them.
Well, I was just going to say, I was a little surprised when I realized that it was almost 150 acres of development there in one planned unit development. And again, that's just really big, and but it's not as concentrated maybe as I'd originally thought. So.
And let me also say about that Ovation development, and this goes back to a conversation that I had just about 2 weeks ago with the consultant in her presentation. She's absolutely noticing a trend in terms of the clients she's working with to go that more urban mixed-use area. And the great thing about Ovation is it gives us that option for these companies that are looking for that kind of development that doesn't exist right now in Williamson County. So for me, as an economic developer, Ovation really allows us to fight that notion of complacency and move toward what's becoming more of a national trend and where companies want to locate where their young professionals and their talent can live very close by.
And I think the other point is kind of the new concept is walkability.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Where people will be able to live, work, play, shop in one area is the concept. And I think it's a concept, at least the way I understand it, there's very few developments like this in Tennessee, much less the Southeast. So we're very blessed that we have a group of developers that bring something different, exciting to us.
Agreed.
And Matt, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
The one thing that I learned a few months ago that just astounded me is that one of our major employers in Cool Springs has found that their younger employees like to go back to Nashville and live in the Gulch, which just totally caught me off guard. But do you think that the projects like Ovation, where there is housing mixed with the office and retail, will somewhat keep some of that traffic off of I-65 toward Nashville?
Yes, in terms of the employees who would be attracted to a place like that.
Right.
I do. I absolutely do. And I think it will, as you've seen this national move more towards urban mixed use with the Gulch and downtown Nashville, this will help us compete for some of those projects, because some of those companies are your smaller, high-tech companies that require a certain level of labor that we don't have right now. So I think it's really important that this will give us another tool for those companies that are looking for that really doesn't exist, like Mayor Moore said, in Tennessee. So this is a great development that will help continue Williamson County's momentum moving forward from an economic standpoint.
Right. Okay. Mac Hatcher, gentlemen, I am most thankful for the widening that has been done so far, and I see on your outline, Eric, that you hasten to add that maintenance is still a TDOT responsibility.
I do want to make sure everybody knows that.
Why did you feel the need to add that?
Well, it's not hitting our standard, honestly, in terms of how it's maintained and the way it looks. and it is still in that transition from the contractor to TDOT on to us in terms of final acceptance. We've anticipated in our budget maintenance, providing for the maintenance with our crews, and are ready to do that, but they are not quite ready to hand it over yet. We're even looking at ways to get it handed over sooner and see what kind of deal we can work out with TDOT so that it can get taken care of sooner, because we aren't pleased with where it is. We hear complaints. We have the same complaints ourselves in terms of how it's being maintained and how it looks, and so we're working to get it to a better place with TDOT once that handoff happens.
Right. Now, all those trees, I understand, are warranted to live, right? Is that correct?
Well, they're warranted for about a year, and then we see what happens from there. But they are maintaining that right now. They'll continue to work on and come back and work to straighten those trees that are having problems. And we're looking at what we do next with those that don't make it and what the appropriate thing is to do, because there's a substantial amount of planting that happened in that project, probably more than we would have asked for initially. In fact, we tried to get them to dial it down, but they had already committed. So anyway, that's where we are.
I have been truly amazed at how well the traffic has flowed since that was open. I was, as Mayor Moore knows, I was very frustrated with traffic prior to the opening of Mac Hatcher. My frustration level has dropped dramatically. I just want the rest of it done.
That's right. Well, it's doing what it's supposed to do, and we're keep pushing for the next phase in terms of the extension, the northwest extension. So that's the next piece. So.
Well, I think we might mention too that we're looking at that other segment of Mac Hatcher. It hasn't been funded yet, but there's a chance that we may get some safety enhancement grants for Royal Oaks, Mac Hatcher, and Lewisburg and Mac Hatcher. So
awesome.
That would help a whole lot, because the design of those intersections just don't work anymore.
Right. I can agree with that. Well, for those people that say you cannot solve traffic problems with pavement, I think that project has irrevocably proved them wrong, and because it has certainly made a huge difference in the, I guess you would call it the eastern side of town. And appreciate your diligence in pushing that and continuing to push there. Now, the McEwen connector, I guess we've already talked about McEwen quite a bit, but now is that what you're referring to, is what eventually will connect to the Sam Ridley Parkway? Or
actually, no, this is the area that was completed this spring that activates that traffic circle at McEwen and Cool Springs and connects that into, again, that's the western portion of McEwen 4 that was done, and some of that's a temporary roadway, but we wanted to get that fully activated to handle the volume of traffic.
Right.
After a little bit of learning curve, it seems to, for our motorists, it seems to be functioning pretty well. So that just gets that traffic circle going and doing what it's supposed to do in terms of allowing traffic to move through that pretty busy area.
Great. And under coming attractions, the Carruthers South Extension, tell us what's going on there, Mayor.
Well, I understand when we're talking about Carruthers South Extension, we're talking about from Falcon Creek all the way to Ladd Park, and actually through Ladd Park to Long Lane. This is a project that the board studied very hard, and one of their initial challenges was, we have enough money to build the north half or the south half, and because of a good climate for borrowing money, also because many of the contractors were putting projects in at much lower prices, we were able to actually do the entire Carruthers South Parkway. It's currently under construction. They're on a rapid pace to finish that. I don't have an exact completion date yet. I think originally it was supposed to be in 2015.
I think fall of 15 is when we think it'll be complete.
Okay.
So that's coming along very nicely. And that's such an important link to give one more alternative for people to take rather than getting on I-65
Or Lewisburg Pike.
or
No.
Lewisburg Pike. Yeah. You live close. I know.
Not that I would keep bringing that up, but.
Let me make a note here.
Hillsborough, Phase 2. Eric, what's going to happen there?
We mentioned that earlier, but that's continuing on with the improvements you've seen in Hillsborough Phase 1, taking that up to the Mac Hatcher intersection. So that'll involve some additional laneage, sidewalks all the way up that area, improved lighting and drainage, provide some additional, especially turn lanes and access into the high school in particular, and then improve that intersection at Hillsborough and Mac Hatcher. So that'll be a big project that'll go to bid this fall and get started by the end of the year, and probably take about 18 months for full completion on that once we get rolling. So, but that'll complete the Hillsborough project as we've envisioned it, which is both a transportation improvement, but also a corridors improvement area too, in terms of improving the look and functionality of that major entryway into downtown.
Right.
And drainage.
And drainage.
And drainage, yes.
Now, the Bicentennial Park we've discussed and covered pretty well. Sidewalks on 96 East and West, what's the plans there?
Well, the board has actually approved funding of those particular projects, and engineering is working on those now on the design, and will subsequently be bringing us a firmer dollar amount to make sure that we can still afford to do it.
Right.
It's an issue on 96 East that I've heard for many years, and I know the board has heard about it, that people wish there was more connectivity down 96 to Pinkerton Park, and similarly sidewalk to nowhere on 96 West. So that sidewalk segment could help create more connectivity, and I think this is a good opportunity to mention that we're placing a great deal of emphasis on connectivity in our city so that people will be able to walk, ride their bike, all over the city. In
Right.
fact, we talk about our greenways and open space plan and how can we connect the entire city. One of the areas that's critical right now, not critical, that sounds like somebody's going to die, but that we think is very important is Franklin Road streetscape project, and we've actually authorized finishing the design on that project, because if you think about it, where's the sidewalk on Franklin Road to go to Harlansdale from downtown?
Right.
It's not there.
Right.
People are walking on the curb, so we're moving forward on that design. We don't have a funding date yet in mind, but I think that going forward, we want to make sure that more and more of our city is connected so people can have those alternatives besides getting in their car.
Right. Last but not least, Mac Hatcher, the northwest segment. What's the latest?
Well, there's emphasis on streamlining that project, make it as affordable as possible, to do a two-lane, basically, highway in that area. So we are taking the lead in getting design, which the state will fund, updated to reflect sort of that streamlined project. And so we will have that design completed this fall and back in TDOT's court. That is my mantra to staff, is let's always keep the ball in their court in terms of funding and moving the project forward. Let's not ever have it be something they're waiting for the city to do. So, and that's been the case with design issues, but also land acquisition. We've been very aggressive at getting those elements that we have responsibility for done as quickly as possible so that they can don't have any reason not to fund it, I guess is the way I would say it.
Right.
So we look to have that updated design completed this fall. And then that's well in time for them to do their updated 3-year plan, which they usually release around April timeframe of every year. So the way that plan works is it's 3 years of projects. Typically, year 1 is full funding in terms of all the money they have. Year 2 is somewhere around 70% of the available dollars they program. They have other dollars they don't, just because of uncertainty. And then that year 3 is around 50% of their funding is allocated. So there's always capacity, even in immediate years, for projects to potentially move forward. And we want to make sure we're in the best position we can to move up that list. It's been a high priority list for the board. It's been a high priority list through the MPO and working on their priority projects. So we feel like we've done all we can do, but we'll keep looking for anything else we should do to keep that project moving.
Now, I almost hate to ask you this, but I'm going to anyway. And because you've already got so many things in front of you that are people are loudly asking for. But the southwest quadrant of McHatcher and Columbia Avenue, is there any dates at all being discussed as to when that might actually be looked at?
Are you talking about the southwest McHatcher, or are you talking about Columbia Avenue?
Well,
Let's talk about Columbia Avenue, because
Okay.
we are in the 3-year funding plan for Columbia Avenue. And the other good news is that TDOT has agreed through some additional funding to fund our 20% requirement on that particular road. So
what's happening there? What is actually going to?
Columbia Avenue will be widened from Downs Boulevard all the way out to McHatcher.
Okay.
Is the plan. The engineering hadn't started on that. I don't think that's been awarded to my knowledge.
No, we've done some preliminary studies a number of years ago. In fact, at the September 9th board meeting, we plan to have a discussion just reviewing that project, because most of the planning for that project, at least the initial planning for that project, happened before this board was seated, and before I was here for sure. So
the state wanted to do that a few years ago, and I think the board at that time.
So
pushed
now
back.
it's risen as a priority for us to move forward on, and as the mayor said, the state has put it on their funding list, and so this is something that looks to have some potential to move forward in the next few years. And so we're going to review the project in more detail for the board, for the public, to have a discussion about it. Does widen it, does create some boulevard areas and that sort of thing, so it'll look more attractive, but it will add and should add capacity significantly, and that's an area that really does back up when you look at it on day-to-day traffic. So that's another area of improvement. It is a state highway, so that would be another state project, but that's one that seems to be getting some momentum, so we'll be talking about that in more detail at September 9th.
Right. And so the southwest McHatcher is...
That's a ways off. We've got to look at widening the southeast, similar to what happened in the northeast.
Right.
When you look at priorities,
Yeah.
I think you want to take care of that. You want to take care of the northwest extension, and then you're looking at the completion of the loop, probably third down that list when we look at what makes the most sense to do. But
I couldn't.
It's out there.
I wouldn't argue with that.
Can't give you a date on that yet.
Let's take a break from the outline just a moment, and we always like to give the audience a chance to step in and ask questions, make comments. And if any of our audience members would like to step up to the podium, we would love to give you an opportunity to ask the mayor or Eric Stuckey some questions. And Andy, I see you over there, Andy Marshall. You happy with the way everything's going in the city right now?
Great place to live. Glad to see a lot of the construction come to completion, and I know when it comes to the end, more stars. It's part of progress.
Miss Ann, do you have any comments to add? We'd love to have you come to the podium and make a few comments.
Oh, yes.
Great
We did,
point.
yeah. We didn't get to talk about that. one of the things we did in response, and it literally was up and operating that weekend of the accident, is we have placed a fire ladder. Ladder 5 is located at the Ag Center with a 4-person crew, including advanced life support response. The county has located an EMS unit there as well, and we're also sort of operating it as a makeshift police substation. So folks in the southeast that may be cut off from that with the bridge out of place in terms of services will have emergency services there at the ready to respond. So we can respond to fire, medical, and any other public safety emergencies, we think, pretty effectively. And thank folks for their response to that. Especially the folks in Ladd Park have done a meal plan. They're cooking meals for the firefighters out there, and they may not want to leave. They treat them so well. But anyway, that's been a good response from our folks in terms of finding ways to meet needs in a difficult situation. But yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor, for bringing that up. That was a good improvement for us, and that'll be in place as long as the bridge is out.
And let me also say, for those who are watching on TV or those in the audience, in addition to the City of Franklin's Twitter account, a fantastic Twitter account is the police department's. Mm-hmm. It's at Franklin TNPD, and they do an amazing job, not just in this incident, but anytime anything happens in Franklin, they're on it within just a few minutes. Mm-hmm. So that's a great account to follow if you're looking for the latest in what's happening in Franklin.
And to segue from that, we had 59,000 Facebook views during that period of time. So social media is very, very important in the city of Franklin as a means of communicating. And the other thing that I wanted to mention about the preparedness on the east side of the interstate with fire and ambulance service is that a little over a year ago we had a tabletop exercise at the police department. And that exercise was a scenario that Franklin had a tornado, and there's a tanker truck that hit the 96 bridge.
Wow.
And the service was disconnected. You know, there was no service on the connected service to the east and west side. So that's why these training exercises are so important. That's why it's so important that our police, fire, all of our emergency services continue to work together in their training to be prepared because of a potential crisis like this.
It's a little scary. You might ought to be careful about what you use
for
this scenario.
I'm going to tone them down as far as the next one has that.
Now, water infrastructure is something that we all take for granted, not to mention sewer, wastewater, I should say, infrastructure. But takes a lot of planning and a lot of money and a lot of effort to keep all of those hidden assets working properly. Eric, give us an overview of what's going on with the Franklin Water Department and the wastewater.
There's some big things moving forward, and that's a key component of supporting growth, is having that key infrastructure in place on the water, but especially on the wastewater treatment capacity standpoint. And one of the things the board did a few years ago was an integrated water resource plan, which is designed to bring together all the elements of what we do with water, what we do around the river, and look at that in terms of a long-term sustainable planning perspective. And so it's the first plan of its kind done in the state of Tennessee, one of the first done in the Southeast. And it brought all those elements together and also looked at population projections over the next 25, 30 years and identified key things that we need to do to keep up with that and be good stewards of the environment and of the river. One of the things we did and that have been targeted is we did sort of a 5-6 year horizon and identified several projects that need to be completed in support of that plan, and those projects are moving forward, and those include the upgrade of the existing water treatment plant, a plant that has served for many years and is in need of upgrade, and we'll go ahead and move forward with that project. That design is underway right now. What we've talked about is we looked at whether to be at a 2 million gallon or a 4 million gallon capacity in terms of treatment, and are at a what's called a firm capacity of 2.6 million gallons. We expect that to produce around 2 million gallons a day with the way you need to operate the plant. And then the biggest component in terms of a capital project is the water reclamation or sewer plant, wastewater treatment plant expansion and upgrade. And that will move from a treatment capacity of 12 million gallons a day to 16 million gallons a day, and is right now under final design. And that's a huge component of what we do in terms of managing growth and supporting growth. And also what we continue to do throughout the community is look at existing infrastructure, because we have both an older core system and we have a new growth system out around the perimeter of the city, or the growth areas in the city. So we're both managing a new system and a system that is very old in areas and components. So we go in and inspect lines on a regular basis and fix leaks and fix elements of the wastewater collection system that aren't working well, or as well as they should, and allowing stormwater in and that sort of thing. So we are doing that on a very systematic basis. It's saving millions of gallons of treated water a year. It's saving water that doesn't need to be treated from getting into the system and overtaxing our system. So we really have enhanced the way that system works in the current, but also for future plans as well.
Now, Mayor Moore or Eric, either one, I know the city bought some property out in the Goose Creek area for future expansion of wastewater treatment. Is that just for long-term future use, or is that something that might happen in the near future?
Well, I think that you're exactly right. It's a potential site for an additional wastewater plant or water reclamation facility in the future. There's been no firm decision made on whether to build that plant yet, but certainly that is one of our options that we'll be looking at into the future to meet the capacity of a growing city.
Right.
When we talk about horizons, the expansion of the existing plant from 12 to 16 million gallons is what's going on now. That's in that 5-year window. The next additional capacity, that decision's probably in that 10-year window. And to do that, we're going to need to likely look at either that site in the south or further expansion at the plant that we're at now. If we use that, then there'll be a lot more pumping in the system. Because if you look at development patterns, there's a lot of development projected in the south. So you'd have a plant adjacent to where a lot of that development's happening, or reasonably close. So that's kind of the trade-off. The plan itself did recommend looking at the Goose Creek site for additional sewer plant capacity when we get above that 16 million capacity. So that will be a decision that we may talk about fairly soon in terms of longer term planning, but that's on the horizon.
Now, what percentage capacity are we running now with the 12 million?
We're at 12 million. It is a full capacity. Our average is around 9 million gallons a day. So we're bumping up. When you get to 75-80%, you need to have a plan about your expansion.
Right.
That's why we've done what we've done. So the plant has a lot more capacity than that. Potentially, when we get major storms, we push higher volumes through. We're able to handle it, and we meet all of our regulatory requirements. But that's from a planning standpoint, from a rating standpoint of the plant, that's where we're tracking.
Right. Again, those are the kind of things that we all take for granted, but just from my short experience as an alderman many years ago, I found out there's a lot of effort that goes on behind the scenes, and we appreciate how smoothly you all make that happen. We're just about out of time, and I want to thank you all for being with us this morning. Mayor Moore, you handles things in such a gentlemanly fashion and keep everybody working together, it seems, and we appreciate your leadership there. Eric, your command of detail is amazing, and we can tell that you are deep into the details on all this stuff, and we appreciate you sharing those with us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
And being with us. Matt, do you have any final comments?
No, I think it's great. I mean, I think, people really get a sense of what kind of team we have when we go out beyond our borders and we try to recruit or help our companies grow. It does. It goes back to what we talked about earlier. People have a great deal of confidence and understand that because of the way this city and county is run, this is a great place for people to locate and grow their business because we're doing the right things. We're not resting our laurels. We understand complacency is our enemy, and we're doing everything we can to make this a great environment for business and still it's a pretty uncertain global business environment.